and welcome to Coffee Break Blogging, where you'll learn to grow and monetize your blog in short, tactical installments you can use right away. Now here's the next episode in our series. Hello there, David Risley here, and welcome back to Coffee Break Blogging. Today we're going to talk a little bit about membership sites, which is a topic we've discussed here before. However, I'm going to talk to you specifically about communities and 7 specific reasons not to use a Facebook group for your private community for a membership site. So this is a topic that has recently come up for me because ever since I started the lab at the Blog Marketing Academy, we have used a private Facebook group for the community aspect of that membership. And it's gone okay, but there's been some issues with it, many of which I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, even though many of these reasons I'm going to tell you about here in just a bit are things that I already knew, I was kind of kicking the can down the road. I was kind of like saying, maybe that's not as big of a deal because Facebook is so much more accessible. And that was really the main reason that I went with Facebook at the outset and stuck with it for a while, was because I thought, especially in my market of bloggers, that most of you guys are on Facebook. And not only that, most of you are probably on Facebook pretty routinely. And so my thought was to make the community more accessible by placing it on Facebook, where chances are a good chunk of you are already there, already have the Facebook app on your phone, you get the notifications, and that generally it would be a much more accessible place. And that is also one of the big reasons why there are many people out there with membership sites, some bigger than others, that are using private Facebook groups as their paid community. And it works out well for the most part, but it does come with some drawbacks. And ultimately, those drawbacks led me to decide to make that executive decision to make the change and move away from a Facebook group and move over to a private forum community now hosted inside the lab itself. Okay, so let's go into 7 specific reasons here why not to use a Facebook group for your membership site. Okay, first one is the level of distraction that Facebook brings to the table. And this is not a fault of Facebook. It's actually a feature of Facebook. I mean, when you think about it, Facebook doesn't put themselves out there as a community site for private membership communities. It's a social network. Okay. And Facebook is going to make a lot more money if you are constantly bouncing around different things on Facebook, enjoying the stuff in your news feed, and stuff like that. And so for that reason, the very structure of the site is such that it's trying to really glue you into that news feed, okay? So that you're clicking on ads and that type of thing, and that the level of engagement is high. And particularly these days, with the election just having gone by, but unfortunately, a lot of the hoopla around the election didn't really end with the inauguration. It just keeps on going, and everybody's just out there bloviating. The level of distraction on Facebook is super high. Now, it's interesting from my perspective as somebody who, twofold. One is that I'm a human being just like everybody else, and it isn't as if blogging and marketing is my only interest in this world. And so as, I go on there to help my lab members, I am sucked into the distraction whirlpool that is Facebook. So it's not good for me. Secondly, as an instructor, and I'm trying to get results with my lab students, I'm trying to get them to make headway in their business. And one of the things that I always tell people about is the danger of distraction. Now, how much does it make sense for me to then say that and then say, by the way, if you have any questions, go over to our community and ask. And I know that by doing that, I'm sending them into the distraction whirlpool. It's actually fundamentally at odds with myself. It really is, for me to send people into that. Versus if I have them in a private member community that's hosted on my own domain, I control the entire environment. Okay. There's not going to be any distractions. Not only that, if they're there, if they made a point to be there, it's because they made a point to be there. It isn't because, oh, let me just see what my friends are doing. Ha ha ha. Look at that funny cat photo. Oh, Donald Trump. Ha ha ha. Oh, by the way, that's what's going on inside the lab community. I mean, it's just, it puts something that's valuable in the same pool as a bunch of bullcrap that's not valuable in any way, shape, or form. And so for me personally, that was one of the biggest reasons I decided to leave Facebook alone and move the private community into a forum. Okay. Reason number 2 is Facebook ads. Now, Facebook is a public company and their primary responsibility is to turn a profit and increase their shareholder value. Now, that I don't fault them for that. It's just fundamentally at odds with my own intentions. Okay. And my intentions here, specifically with the community, is to answer people's questions and help them get results, help them realize the reasons they signed up for the lab in the first place. Now, so when they go into the news feed and they see all these ads, many of which are for people who might even be competitors of mine, which, whatever, I don't really look at them that way, but they're being advertised to constantly. Now, let's bring that out of the news feed and into the Facebook group itself. There are ads in there. If you go down the sidebar of any Facebook group, there are ads there, and there's suggested groups there. And some of those suggested groups might be for other membership sites. Not only that, Facebook is actually testing out the capability for advertisers to target Facebook groups as one of the targeting means for an ad. And so I would not be surprised. I have not personally seen this yet, but I have seen screenshots of it, that you might start to see sponsored posts inside of Facebook groups. Now, that right there is a major deal killer for me. Now, I don't know all of the ins and outs of this, and here I am at the beginning of 2017, and I don't really know how this is ultimately going to roll out. So if you're listening to this episode sometime in the future, we may now know what happens with this. But me as a community owner, and especially one where people are paying to be in there, do I want other people to be able to target my paid member community and put their ads in front of my group? It just goes to show that I don't own this thing. Okay. And so for that reason, it's just another major red flag. And it's fine. As an advertiser, I would love the ability to target other Facebook groups. That I would be in heaven with that. But as a person who has my own community, not so much. I think I need to move the community, and so I have. Okay, so that is the second reason not to use a Facebook group for your membership site, is that you might find your community being targeted by other people with advertisements. Okay. Reason number 3 is edge rank and visibility, and it comes down to this. Facebook is trying to make your news feed as engaging as possible. And one of the ways that they do that is using something called EdgeRank. And with EdgeRank, it's going to show you more of the things that you engage with, and it's going to show you less of the things that you don't engage with. Now, making the long story short here, the end result of this is that there's probably going to be activity happening inside of your member community that your members never actually see. They don't receive a notification for it, and it will not show up on their news feed. Okay? And it's because they may not be engaging with your group often enough to trigger the whatever qualifications there are for EdgeRank to make it show up in the news feed. Now, if they specifically visit your group, they'll probably see it. Okay? But in the news feed, maybe not. And so if you have some idea that your members are going to see everything that's happening inside your community, that's not the case. Give you a big example, and this is actually one reason why many people in my space, in the world of online marketing, do use private Facebook groups, is because they see the good guys at Digital Marketer doing exactly that. And some of you guys may be familiar with the Digital Marketer, and they have the Digital Marketer, their own lab over there. And they have a pretty large private Facebook community called Digital Marketer Engage. And it works really well. Now, I am a member over there. I've been a paying member of Digital Marketer for quite some time. And so I'm a member of Digital Marketer Engage. I very rarely see their stuff show up in my newsfeed. If one of my Facebook friends happens to post inside of that group, then I might see it. Otherwise, it just doesn't show up. And I don't get notifications for it either. The only way that I participate in that group to see what's actually going on is I have to make a specific point to visit it. But then again, there is so much distraction on Facebook that I really don't go in there very often. I personally think that someday in the not too distant future, digital marketers probably going to explore making a shift, but it's going to be a much bigger deal for them because of the size of their community. I'm glad that I've decided to make that shift now. Okay. So that's a really big reason. Your members are probably not going to see a majority of what happens in your paid member community if you house it on Facebook. Okay. Number 4 is lack of control. I mean, need I remind you that you do not own Facebook? That when you have a group on Facebook, that is not your group. You don't own any of the data. You don't own any of the content. It belongs to Facebook. Okay? They own it. They can do whatever they want with it. They can change the rules. If they want to insert sponsored posts into your group, what are you going to do to stop them? You can't do anything. It's rented land. And quite frankly, it's not even really rented because you're paying them nothing. And I doubt Facebook is ever going to get into the business of charging group owners money to lock down a group and give you more control, because that's really not their business model. It's not their business model. Okay. So that lack of control will always be there. And if you're okay with that, fine. I'm not, especially for an asset as valuable as my lab community. Okay. So number 4 reason why I moved away from Facebook group for my membership site is a lack of control that I had with it. Reason number 5 is a really particularly crappy search function. I mean, it is royally bad. And it makes me sad, really. I mean, that my lab Facebook group has been around a while. There's a lot of great stuff back there in the history that has great conversations that have taken place, and it is so hard to find them. Now, groups do have a search function. It's just that it is just bad. It is like your most basic level search engine. You plug in a word, it will literally go find everything in the group history that contains that word, but with no organization capability at all. And you're just sitting there scrolling through search results. It's very unstructured. It is just not very useful. Okay. And so that is another big reason is I can't really get in any long-term value out of this user-generated content because by nature, a social media network is so instantaneous in how it works. It's a very instantaneous platform. Facebook, it's not as instantaneous in nature as Twitter is, but it's still pretty instantaneous. After a few days, it just kind of goes on back there. Okay. Unless people are commenting on it regularly, which bumps it up to the top of the feed, it will just kind of go back there and it's going to be really hard to find. So really crappy search is my number 5 reason why I decided to stop using a Facebook group for my membership site. Number 6 is lack of ownership over the content. Now, this goes kind of hand in hand with some of the things that I've already told you here, but you don't own any of that. Okay, it isn't as if when a user posts a comment on one of your blog posts, well, you do own that because they posted it on your website and it's just kind of an understood license. But with Facebook, that's not the case at all. That's Facebook's stuff. Okay, it's a social network. And you don't have any control or ownership of that content. And think about it, especially if you are setting up a paid community. One of the ways that you're making that membership more valuable over time is that you have that growing library of past user-generated content that people can run a search on and find old conversations that answer their questions. Well, when you combine lack of ownership of that content with a really crappy search function, it doesn't work out very well. You can't really do anything about it. And I highly doubt Facebook is ever going to do anything about it because it's not their motivation. Their motivation is, quite frankly, to put ads in there so they can make more money. All right. And that brings us to number 7, the final reason why I decided not to use a Facebook group for my membership site any longer. And that is that there's no automatic access control. Now, what I mean by that is that when somebody joined the lab, I did not have any way to automatically grant them access to the Facebook group. And this led to administrative issues. First of all, I would have to, in part of the welcome emails and stuff like that, I'd have to continually be like, hey, did you get into the group? Hey, did you get into the group? I couldn't even check to see if they had gotten into the group because Facebook is kind of its own thing. I have no way of knowing if they were able to successfully access it. It was just a big disconnect. I already know who these people are. They've got the login and everything, but now I have to say, hey, can you go over to Facebook and request membership? And then we have to go and manually approve it. And then, God forbid, if anybody cancels their lab membership, which, this is a business, it does happen, we have to execute an internal process to go and find that person in the Facebook group and remove them from it. There are times where sometimes the name that they signed up for with us under is not the same name that they were using on Facebook. And then it becomes a bit of a disconnect issue where we're like, okay, what name are you using over there? It's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt. Now, there might be, I think I might have seen 1 or 2 ways out there of maybe automating this in some way, but it's just Facebook doesn't make it easy. You never know how this is going to work. And you just alleviate the entire problem when you have everything in-house, because then you've got one universal login. When somebody logs into the lab, they're automatically logged into my forum. It's done deal. I don't have to make sure that they request access or anything of the sort. It's automatic. Okay. So those are the 7 reasons why I have decided to make the big switch. I've been putting it off a long time. The Facebook group for the lab is still there, but it's a lot more quiet than it used to be because the members are very happily moving over into my new private community, which is inside the lab itself. So now the Blog Marketing Academy has a pretty cool forum. We're running a piece of software called Discourse. Perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps you haven't. It's not a WordPress plugin or anything like that. It actually doesn't even run on PHP. It is hosted elsewhere, but you will never know the difference because it is under the blogmarketingacademy.com domain. The login is completely all synced up. So from a user perspective, it's really a beautiful thing. And I'm getting to where I really like the Discourse software and how it actually works. It's got a lot of social network-esque features to it. It's very easy. It doesn't divide conversation into a bunch of different rooms. It's very mobile friendly. I give my members the ability to participate in threads via email. So, that they can actually reply via email. They don't even have to come into the forum. There's notification capability. It's a really good thing. So actually, I find it to be just as easy to engage with as Facebook. But even better in that when people are participating in this community, they're actually there for the reason, and we're all more focused on things. And that's a really beautiful thing. So if you are a membership site owner, I can tell you that I have really not had any significant hiccups moving to a private member community, especially with Discourse. I'm pretty happy I made the move. Okay. So those are my, again, 7 reasons not to use a Facebook group for your membership site. If you are planning out a membership site now, I would definitely recommend you to go with a forum. You do not have to use Discourse. That just happens to be what I use, but there are many of them out there. You want to make sure that it has universal login capability with your membership site software, so that members don't have to log into a separate place. I think that's a really important requirement. And it's working out pretty well for me. Okay. if you would love to check out that community, and I think you'll find that it's a really cool place to be now, especially now because we don't have all that distraction. I'd love to see you join the lab if you've not already become a member. If you'd like to request a trial invitation to the lab, head on over to blogmarketingacademy.com/listeners. I'll extend to you a private invite into the lab, and you can check it out for yourself without paying the full monthly rate to give it a whirl, okay? And within just a few minutes, you can pop into our lab community. You'll see that there's some cool stuff going on in there, and it's picking up in there. You know, this forum has only now, as of this recording, been live for maybe 2 weeks now, and I'm really, really very happy with how quickly it's starting to take off. And I'd love to have you as part of that group. So once again, you can request a trial invitation exclusive to my podcast listeners at blogmarketingacademy.com/listeners. And I'd love to see you inside the lab. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.